Good morning. Hope you're doing well today. Today we're talking about designing the event experience. This is chapter 7. Here we go. All right. So the objectives that we kind of expect with this chapter are to clearly define the characteristics of an event experience, as well as recognizing the importance of designing an event experience that creates meaning, and understand how to develop an event experience, as well as discerning that your stakeholders will have varied experiences, and identify how the unique elements of an event impact the experience. An experience occurs when a company intentionally uses services as the stage and goods as props to engage individual customers in a way that creates a memorable event. Commodities are tangible goods, and services intangible, and experiences are memorable. Buyers of experiences will follow the lead of experience economy pioneer Walt Disney and call them guests. Value what the company reveals over a duration of time. While prior economic offerings, commodities, goods, and services are external to the buyer, experiences are inherently personal, existing only in the mind of an individual who has been engaged on an emotional, physical, intellectual, or even spiritual level. Thus, no two people can have the same experience, because each experience derives from the interaction between the staged event, like a theatrical play, and the individual's state of mind. Experiences have always been at the heart of the entertainment business, a fact that Walt Disney and the company he founded have creatively exploited. But today, the concept of selling an entertainment experience is taking root in businesses far removed from theaters and amusement parks. New technologies in particular encourage whole new genres of experience, such as interactive games, internet chat rooms, multiplayer games, motion-based simulators, and virtual reality. Our business is the delivery of lifelike interactive experiences. At themed restaurants such as the Hard Rock Cafe, Planet Hollywood, or the House of Blues, the food is just a prop for what's known as eatertainment. And stores such as Nike Town, Cabela's, and Recreational Equipment Incorporated draw consumers in by offering fun activities, fascinating displays, and promotional events, sometimes labeled shoppertainment or entertaining. But experiences are not exclusively about entertainment. Companies stage an experience whenever they engage customers in a personal and memorable way. Companies generally move from one economic stage to the next in incremental steps. And you can see here with the diagram, it shows you how you have the social and enjoyment, as well as the experience and gains, and what goes along with that. With the social, there's a connection and bonding, and fans are motivated by, of course, entertainment and the escapism associated with the enjoyment of the event and the experience itself. And oftentimes that's about it being aesthetic, beautiful, in a nice place, and eustress away from stress. And then the gains associated with that. So it could be a learning or educational type of accomplishment, and some type of achievement associated with that. No company sells experiences as its economic offering unless it actually charges guests an admission fee. An event created just to increase customer preference for the commoditized goods or services that a company actually sells is not an economic offering. But even if a company rejects, for now, charging admission to events that it stages, its managers should already be asking themselves what they would do differently if they were to charge an admission. The answers will help them see how their company might begin to move forward into the experience economy. For such an approach demands the design of richer experiences. And so with that, again, you can create generic experiences that occur at any event that are relatable to the individual's state of mind and expectations, or they can be staged to meet a more customary expectation. It really depends upon what kind of experience you want to give your people. Before a company can charge admission, it must design an experience that customers judge to be worth the experience. Excellent design, marketing, and delivery will be every bit as crucial for experiences as they are for goods and services. Ingenuity and innovation will always precede growth and revenue, yet experiences like goods and services have their own distinct qualities and characteristics and present their own design challenges. So you have to consider what kind of experience, again, you want to deliver and what kind of strength of the event experience, as well as how long you expect for your attendees to stay and what kind of meeting you want for them. Event experiences are viewed as a process when certain conditions are met, such as in a multi-phased and multi-influential experience can occur, resulting in multiple outcomes. This experience has cognitive, conative, and affective components. Manel and Kleiber posit three dimensions of experience: the cognitive, and affective. The cognitive dimension describes experience as actual behavior, an inclination to act purposefully. Cognitive dimension relates to making sense of the experience through awareness, your perception, your memory, what you've learned, and your judgment. And affective dimension concerns the emotions or feelings associated with the experience. The main elements that need to be considered are the social interaction, involvement, the cognitive, conative, and emotional reactions to experience stimuli and resulting satisfaction and memory. Event experiences are also multiphasic, which suggests a need to monitor the experience at different stages in the event experience. One way to think about experiences is across two dimensions. The first corresponds to customer participation. At one end of the spectrum lies passive participation, in which customers don't affect the performance at all. Such participants include symphony goers, for example, who experience the event as observers or listeners. At the other end of the spectrum lies active participation, in which customers play key roles in creating the performance or event that yields the experience. These participants include skiers, but even people who turn out to watch a ski race are not completely passive participants. Simply by being there, they contribute to the visual and oral event that others experience. The second dimension of experience describes the connection or environmental relationship that unites customers with the event or performance. At one end of the spectrum, connection spectrum, lies absorption. At the other end, immersion. People viewing the Kentucky Derby from the grandstand can absorb the event taking place beneath and in front of them. Meanwhile, people standing in the infield are immersed in the sight, sounds, and smells that surround them. Furiously scribbling notes while listening to a physics lecture is more absorbing than reading a textbook, of course. Seeing a film at the theater with an audience, large screen, and stereophonic sound is more immersing than watching the same film on video at home. Experiences are divided into four broad realms, who also referred to as the 4E constructs of the experience economy: entertainment, educational, aesthetic, and escapist. And these were all developed by Pine and Gilmore in 1999. Entertainment experiences are those in which consumers passively participate and are absorbed through their senses. Consumers increasingly desire entertaining shopping experiences to feel a sense of fulfillment. So entertainment is a great way to create a memorable consumer experience and provides retailers with an opportunity to differentiate their environments using live performing artists, interactive activities, or unique scenery. Entertainment experience can make a long-lasting emotional connection with the consumer. And if consumers are absorbed in an experience and enjoyment is the result, they are more likely to return for more and continue supporting the retailer. With educational experiences, consumers absorb the events through active participation. Encouraging consumers to try out or test products also increases brand awareness and the brand's distinguishing features. Allowing consumers to co-create the experience and be engaged personally will enable consumers to have educational experiences that involve learning and a real connection with the brand. If consumers are actively engaged in improving their skills and knowledge, they are more likely to visit and revisit. That's actually what I hope you get out of your projects, is that you are experiencing your education as you're going, and I hope you remember those projects after you have graduated and gone on. The escapist experiences are the opposite of entertaining experiences, involving total immersion and active participation in events. Consumers take on an alternative existence through sporting environments. This can provide a world of fantasy and allow them to escape reality. Consumers are drawn in by the spectacle as the excitement and novelty initiated gives consumers a break from reality. Many consumers seek experiences that provide an escape from the mundane, and for them, visiting facilities to explore, touch, feel, and interact with the environment. This type of experience adds hedonic value to otherwise utilitarian shopping and helps differentiate one retail brand from another. The escapist experience builds into things such as adventure, fantasy, fun, and surprise to fulfill consumers' hedonistic needs, and have also been positively associated with consumers patronizing facilities. In aesthetic experiences, consumers are immersed in the environment but are not partaking in it. They can offer consumers an aesthetic experience as these stores are packed with immersive elements such as the unique and unusual store designs and atmospherics. The exterior design positively affected a consumer's intention to visit the facility. So the aesthetic experiences generated by the physical environment can also influence consumers' intention to patronize an organization, indicating that there is a connection between the aesthetic experience of a setting and intention to patronize the facility. And designing experiences by theming an event could include designing signage and wayfinding systems at existing ballparks and creating branded experiences at state-of-the-art collegiate athletic training facilities. Much like what you see here, this isn't necessarily an athletic training facility, but it is the home, of course, of the OU Sooner football team. And you can see really immersive experience there, trying to engage the people to come by and visit and learn about what's going on with football at OU, and create that connection with them. So creating connections with future fans and engaging younger audiences. So you have to take new approaches and try things that have never been done. Generate memorable, engaging experiences through immersive brand activation. And you can see that they've got the brand on the ceiling and in different areas throughout the facility. Creating branded environments that motivate, inspire, entertain, and thrill. Stakeholders include professional and student athletes, sponsors, donors, and fans. You always try to engage people in new ways, creating concepts that are really unexpected. The process often involves collaborating with key stakeholders to identify and visually convey the unique stories that differentiate a sports team or program. So going back to previous football player, your star player, your Heisman Trophy winner, things along that, and getting their stories. Working closely with coaching staffs and other stakeholders to really get to the bottom of the story and what sets them apart. Knowing what we need to create immersive environments that make a huge impact in a short amount of time. As a marketer and event planner, you can use carefully crafted narratives to draw people to your events and give them powerful experiences. People do not buy goods and services, they buy relations, stories, and magic. A brand narrative is a story you tell that helps your customers and followers connect emotionally with your brand. It humanizes your brand and gives it personality so your business doesn't feel cold and corporate. A clever narrative is a powerful way to make people feel comfortable interacting with your brand. So your brand narratives entertain. They are compelling stories with enticing journeys, full characters including villains, and difficult challenges and relatable moments keep people engaged. Your brand narrative should educate. A good story imbues people with knowledge and wisdom. Each person should be better in some way after experiencing the story. Good stories focus on that better version of each person and not products and services. Your brand narrative should also inspire. Your good stories drive people to action. They should want to do something with their newfound wisdom. You might inspire them to solve a problem for themselves or someone else, or take action to better themselves. As an event planner, use carefully crafted narratives to draw people to your events and give them powerful experiences. Your brand narratives also help you make decisions. For example, if your narrative revolves around environmentalism and sustainable living, it wouldn't serve your story to purchase wasteful and disposable products for your event. Instead, you could find ways to source goods from local companies that mirror your values. Not all businesses need a brand narrative. In some cases, it's fine to have a purely transactional relationship with your customers. The hot dog vendor at the park doesn't need a compelling story. He just needs a good product at a fair price in the right place. But if you're throwing events for your business or your client's business, you probably have a brand narrative. If you don't have a story, creating one can help you differentiate yourself in a competitive market. Having a clear idea of what you stand for and how you should behave makes it much easier for your guests to understand and connect with you. And selling your story through your event is similar to telling a traditional story. You can help connect with the story by giving them typical elements they expect. Here are a few rules to follow when crafting a brand narrative. You want to establish a protagonist. Every story needs a protagonist. In most cases, the protagonist of your brand narrative is your customer. If you're hosting an event, the customers are your guests. Your protagonists can be individuals or a whole group. Present the antagonist. Just like every story needs a protagonist, it also needs at least one antagonist, the villain. The antagonist can be a specific person. For example, an event for private car dealers could present the big corporate dealership as the antagonist, or the antagonist could be a concept like debt or unemployment. You want to create friction. Stories are full of obstacles for the protagonist to overcome. Identify and stoke the main points created by the antagonist. For instance, unemployment is the antagonist that causes stress and depression and makes you feel like you lack purpose. It's important that your audience can relate to the pain points you target in a natural way. For example, if you throw an event for aspiring bloggers, you could lean on their fear of working a traditional job or relying on other people for income. Those are memorable pain points that might make someone interested in a career in blogging. That said, don't hype your protagonist's problems in an unreasonable way. For instance, woodworkers know the pain of working in a messy workshop, but they'll have a hard time trusting you if you present dust and clutter as the next social pandemic. Introduce the advisor. The greatest stories involve a trusted advisor, an old friend, an old coach, a counselor, or sage who either has the answers, who can set the protagonist on the path to find them. This is where your brand comes in. Your brand is the advisor who could help the protagonist defeat the antagonist. Call them to action. In traditional storytelling, the call to aim arms is when the hero or heroes decide to take the fight to the antagonist. It's a critical moment that drives the story toward its climax and conclusion. That is when you and your speakers implore your guests to use what they learned at your event to take action. Often this includes pushing them to use the tools you offer, such as your products or services, to accomplish their goals. A good brand narrative keeps people hooked to your event. It helps them invest themselves emotionally with your brand. If your story speaks to them, they'll eventually come to see themselves as part of the story. Creating meaningful connections with people through your website or Facebook profile is tough, but events are prime opportunities to interact directly with your audience and make them feel like they're part of the story. Look for ways to build your narrative into every aspect of your event, from the moment they see the first Facebook ad or Twitter post through event registration, and most importantly, in the event space. Seamlessly weaving your narrative into the entire experience is key to reinforcing your story and your guest's place in it. It helps to write your story out on paper before your event so you and everyone else in your team understands it. If you have created guest personas, sometimes called audience personas or buyer personas, you may already have this information. Then, whenever you need to make an event planning decision, you can turn to your brand narrative for inspiration. For instance, hire speakers or presenters who will teach topics that help your guests defeat their problems. You could even ask your speakers to touch on the same theme or repeat the same story elements throughout their presentation so there's a cohesive narrative. Even the lighting, furniture, music, and decor can be used to support your narrative. Peaceful music and gentle colors could support a journey of self-discovery and personal satisfaction, while upbeat music and vibrant colors could support a story of empowerment and determination. Your values are a good place to find inspiration for ways to incorporate your brand narrative into your event. Here are some examples. If you value exploration and discovery, create a menu with exotic dishes your guests have probably never experienced before. If you value minimalism and efficiency, use an open industrial space for your event and fill it with sleek furniture. If you value connectivity and technology, fill your event space with tech like iBeacons or interactive devices and gadget demonstrations. If you aren't considering your brand narrative when you plan events, you're missing out on a powerful tool to build personal connections with your guests. People love stories, so use them to engage your guests and create memories and support your brand's goals. Liminality is a term used to describe the psychological process of transitioning across boundaries and borders. The term limen comes from the Latin for threshold. It is literally the threshold separating one space from another. Liminality is a state, a process of either being in or passing through a period of uncertainty, as a time between two spaces, a void. The concept of liminality is a product of rituals process. They cannot have a reaction without each other. Liminality is functioning as a tool in all aspects of the society's rituals. The Olympic Games, for example, are framed around 4 areas: spectacle, festival, ritual, and game. Sport events, and by extension sport festivals, are therefore ideal examples of liminality at work, as people can escape their everyday life for a short period of time and mask one identity from another. For example, the stadium, including event management and hospitality operations, the athlete's team, club sponsors, marketers, and sports fans are key players in the establishment of liminality through ritualistic behavior. Escapist experience domain, as the emphasis here is upon active engagement, and a state of immersiveness is encountered, which is reflective of the liminoid liminality. There is experiential value of co-creation for marketing of the sport event because there is an opportunity to influence fan behavior in terms of consumption and participation. Liminoid liminality is not limited to the live event experience, as fans attending a watch party, for example. Construct intermediate places which connects place, rituals, and community beyond the sports stadium. Rich in sports events is central in designing liminal experiences and creating liminoid happenings in which fans, as spectators, can make sense of themselves or their environment. Therefore, liminality is in essence the most fundamental concept that must be considered before an event can be designed, and should also be presented before, during, and after the sport event, bearing in mind the liminal bubble in which sport fans live. Event design of sport events for liminal experiences should aim to capture celebration, communitas, and symbols throughout the liminal cycle. There are different ways in which liminality can be designed into an event experience, and event organizers need to consider these ways to ensure they are protected within the conceptualization and conception of event design. It is well established in consumer behavior that consumer sensory experiences play an important role in their perceptions of the values companies provide. By developing the sensory elements to meet and exceed the expectations of consumers, companies can deliver a positive consumer experience that can turn casual consumers into loyal consumers. However, the sensory experience alone may not guarantee that consumers remember the experience. In order for the experience to exist in a consumer's mind, it must be memorable. According to memory researchers, information that engages in multiple senses is more likely to be remembered. The effects of multisensory engagement of consumers vary. For example, brands that appeal to all 5 senses that can affect the perception of product quality and therefore demand a premium price over similar brands that appeal to only 1 or 2 senses. Use visual content to simulate the sense of sight. With social media technologies readily available, you can create an engaging path of touch points for attendees to interact with. Create hashtags. Set up the perfect environment for taking photos at your event and create a custom hashtag that features the photos that are tagged with your hashtag. Have computers display featured photos and ensure you have decent Wi-Fi for every social media sharing. This serves to engage your attendees and get your brand out there on social media channels in real time. Take it one step further by creating a social media wall for everyone to see what's going on. Make each attendee feel special with their contribution and creating a much better overall atmosphere. Have giveaways. Create contests for attendees to provide content contributions live on site. The best photo or video contributor wins a prize. This is one of the best ways to generate massive amounts of visual content in exchange for something special at an event. Attendees will feel more involved and have a more keen interest in creating visuals in exchange for something else. Nothing is more pleasant than having the right kind of sounds or music at an event. You want to create the perfect mood for your attendees, not irritate them and have them leave. Understanding your target group is important in the creation of the best audio experience they can have. Set the right soundtrack. You want to select the best type of music and or sounds to use at your event. Depending on the theme, research the audio preferences of your attendees and create an appropriate soundtrack that works. If you're feeling adventurous, step outside the comfort zone and experiment with different audio elements to create something that attendees won't expect. Brace yourself for technical difficulties. Microphone feedback, loud volumes, buzzes, and crackles can really destroy the experience you're trying to make. Ensure you have your audio professionals on site ready to rectify any audio issues that might happen during an event. Murphy's Law is always prevalent. Don't be a victim to bad comments just because you weren't ready to fix that 5-second long microphone feedback that tore the eardrums off of 1,000 people. Select the right choices of food from the best catering companies out there within your event budget. Of course, every attendee has a dietary preference, and making sure they are well taken care of as compared to the main bulk of attendees with no preferences shows you really care. Attendees remember that. While you shouldn't scrimp on your catering budget and leave people hungry without food, remember that there is always food wastage from excess orders. Set the gold standard for sustainable events by finding the balance between satisfaction and over-ordering. Have tasting booths. Take on the sense of taste from a completely different angle and set up booths where attendees can sample products or services that are available at your events. If the first 2 senses have been covered, your attendees should be more willing to participate and interact with your touch points you have set in place. Let attendees have a taste of what your events have to cover. A look into VR and AR technology for events can be great factors in raising attendee interactions by letting them try out things that may not be possible physically. The sense of smell is often neglected in an event experience. However, the selection of fragrance at your event can be the one thing that makes or breaks an event. Why? Imagine if you stepped into a conference that's packed with thousands of delegates and the different fragrances or lack of they wear come at your nose at once. That would be a sensory overload and not a good thing for an attendee to experience. You want to choose the right smell. This goes back to the theme, venue, and size of attendees coming to your event. Choose the right fragrance that can handle the previously mentioned factors, and you'll be well on your way to the best smelling event ever. Test run the smells you've selected before the event, bearing in mind that there are potentially many other smells that will affect the overall scent of your event due to the type of event you're running and the fragrances people wear. While you can happily scatter the fragrances all over your venue, remember to try and contain the smells within the appropriate sections of your event. You don't want the smell of Hall A to spill into Hall B when both themes differ. It'll just serve to confuse your attendees and probably create a really smelly affair with your nose. You don't want a case of runny attendance leaving your event simply because of that. The physical reality of your events, the final sense you want to have well taken care of. While considering the visual aspects of the prop, decor, furniture, and other physical objects in your event, remember attendees will interact with these objects somehow. You want to ensure the feel is right, so you select the best textures. Interaction with the different touch points and decor at your event will be frequent. So this is something you want to bear in mind when planning your event. Should there be carpeting floors to provide comfort for feet and soften the sounds of delegates walking? Or are the surfaces of the furniture comfortable enough for attendees to network, be it seated or standing? These might seem insignificant, but a really comfortable setting or uncomfortable, depending on the scheme of the event, can serve as an added trigger for an excellent event experience. Are angular objects or rounded objects better to suit the different segments of your event, or theme for that matter? You want the chosen furniture and decor to suit the event visually, yet at the same time complement the sense of touch at the event itself. By engaging the 5 senses of your attendees and leave that lasting impression, make them feel contented, engaged, enlightened, and maybe even refreshing. When you experience something, you want to be taken on all 5 levels to get the best memory and fulfillment. Don't leave attendees high and dry by taking them halfway through your event experience. When it comes to keeping attendees interested in staying the whole course for your events, it can be challenging to hold their attention, much less have them interact with the different components of your event. As humans, we have been given the 5 senses that enable us to experience the world in a myriad of ways. It's really up to you as an event planner to decide how you want to take your attendees on a journey. Co-creation means a creative process that involves different parties for innovations to increase value. Business research uses the co-creation approach, but it has not been adequately adapted to sports environment. Co-creation in sports takes place automatically and is not realized usually by the recipients. Value in sports is especially created by numerous stakeholders. Your service providers in sports should identify how consumers evaluate experience and which dimensions of value are most important to them in the context under consideration. This will help them to successfully facilitate value co-creation and make meaningful value propositions and achieve strategic benefit for themselves. This is much like what you see with what we're doing with our projects in partnering with the Special Olympics as well as with the broadcasting company, and co-creating those experiences and what can come of that. Co-creation as a collaborative process between organizations and customers generates unique value for both internal and external stakeholders for the company. Research generally examines and portrays customer-company co-creation as a balanced and harmonious relationship. However, a successful co-creation strategy involves understanding the shared interests of the parties and resolving tensions between internal and external stakeholders to avoid co-destruction. With the Experience Co-Creation Process, or ECC, it involves enabling co-creative interactions so that individuals can have meaningful and compelling engagement experiences. Either process requires some management guidelines based on enlightened self-interest. To illustrate how an EEC initiative works in practice, consider the running shoe business of Nike. In May 2006, Nike launched the Nike Plus platform, a collaboration between Nike and Apple, consisting of an Apple iPod music player, a wireless device to connect the music player to running shoes, a pair of Nike shoes with a special pocket to accept the wireless device, and membership in the iTunes and Nike Plus online communities, iTunes.com and NikePlus.com. The Nike Plus co-creation platform capitalizes on the connection between running and music. The combination of innovative mobile technology, online communities, and athletic gear expands the field for co-creation. To manage the co-creation of value process in this market, Nike uses guidelines based on the DART model: dialogue, access, risk return, and transparency. To establish best practices at Nike, these guidelines set the stage for high-quality co-creative interactions between individuals, which are the runners, or groups or teams of runners, the running clubs, and organizations like Nike and Apple. Dialogue. The DART co-creation model is designed to foster meaningful dialogue, for example, between the customer and the company. The Nike Plus system encourages meaningful dialogues between the runner and Nike, between the runner or listener and Apple, among runners, as well as between runners and running experts. Runners can engage in nearly real-time conversations online. Groups of runners can challenge one another, and friends can cheer on each other as they make progress towards their goals and resolutions. So what you see is that co-creation is not necessarily focusing completely on the attendee. It's really about the joint creation of experience and the creation of a relationship with the attendee, with that individual necessarily, not necessarily mass marketing. And so it's not necessarily about, the customer is always right viewpoint. It's really more about the relationship and the opportunity to co-construct with the attendee and create an experience with the environment. So there are those shared creation of activities and experience variety between one individual to another. Watching sports includes strong emotions that translate into manifold consequential behaviors. As tourism products, sport events can generate destination imageries for the audiences through the media or through direct experiences, and can also have a certain meaning in the mind of the sport consumer who travels to participate in the event. Sport tourists attach meanings to a sport event or destination, which may influence their likelihood of revisiting the host destination and stimulate economic impact for the host community. An understanding of the aspects involved in the meaning of sport event experience as held by different types of tourists may help destinations create sport tourism image that attracts more or desirable visitors, such as event participants and spectators, to their area. And here you can see creating a meaning for a sport event experience. It could involve the environmental aspects, like what we're going to have more with the kayaking event. It could be the organizational aspects, the physical activity, emotional, or even social aspects. And you kind of expect with really with all of those, with our kayaking event, and with our other events as well. You're creating meaning and attaching it to an experience and allowing the attendee to interpret in their point of view. And so trying to help and not control that, but to help to encourage meaning for your people that are coming to your event. And so some of that could be with your ceremony, your ritual. With the Special Olympics, they do have a ceremony, their opening ceremonies, with their flags and their banners and the colors and their music and the athletes as they walk onto the stage, creating meaning to that experience. And this is a great chart as well. So it demonstrates that there is personal meaning associated with sport events, that sense of belonging, or self-esteem or mastery if you're participating in the event, of self-discovery. There's also that cultural meaning that's attached to sport events, that sense of community and community pride and sharing of values. Give a shared celebration if you are part of the Kansas City Chiefs teams or fans. Political meaning associated with sporting events, and you see that with the Olympics. A lot of times there's a nationalism that occurs, that national identity building and community development programs, trying to improve the infrastructure of the community so that we can encourage sport at all levels and not just at the national level. And the economic meaning associated with sport events and trying to encourage tourism. We actually have that now with a new commissioner coming in, sport commissioner, and he is associated with our Visit Corpus Christi, which is our tourism board. And with that, hopefully to encourage new jobs, new business, more infrastructure for the city of Corpus Christi. These are my references. And that is all I have for today. You guys have a great day. I look forward to talking with you again.